From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It is Tuesday, September 10th. I'm Wayne Pratt. Ahead, Missouri wants large livestock operations to be regulated at the state level. But some rural residents and farmers are worried about what that might lead to.
If somebody builds a hog operation at the end of my driveway, I would be concerned about that waste getting into the groundwater.
St. Louis Public Radio's Jonathan Ahl reports on a debate over state or local control of huge animal farms. First, the news. 50 state attorneys general, including Missouri's Eric Schmitt and Kwame Raoul in Illinois, are launching an investigation into possible anti-competitive behavior by Google. The probe will examine whether Google is prioritizing search results for companies that pay to advertise. Schmidt says it could be shutting out competitors and hurting the free market.
CIDs were issued today to Google, which essentially are sort of subpoenas to find out information and to get the facts. And let the facts lead us where they're going to lead us, and not to prejudge them, but to get as much information as we can about sort of what's behind the curtain here.
Schmidt made those comments yesterday. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul says the investigation, quote, aims to maintain the free flow of online information. Google says it is cooperating with the investigation and looks forward to showing how it invests in innovation and engages in fair competition. Newly elected St. Louis County Councilwoman Kelly Dunaway says she wants to focus on racial equality while in office. As St. Louis Public Radio's Julie O'Donoghue reports, the Chesterfield Democrat wants county employees to undergo more of what is called implicit bias training.
Dunaway says St. Louis County needs to devote more resources towards understanding how racism makes people treat each other. She says the county needs to spend more time talking publicly about how racism shapes society.
We need to recognize where racism has influenced law and policy and real estate zoning and people's lives, and stop being so defensive and just try really hard to understand what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes.
Dunaway says training would help people recognize how biases affect their day-to-day interactions. She says talking about racism should not make anyone feel personally attacked or ashamed. I'm Julie O'Donoghue, St. Louis Public Radio.
Dunaway spoke on our Politically Speaking podcast, which you can hear at stlpublicradio.org. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin is urging the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to better regulate electronic cigarettes in wake of several vaping-related deaths. Durbin criticized the FDA yesterday for its lack of oversight of the sale and marketing of e-cigarettes and nicotine vaping products to minors. It's another call for tighter restrictions, and they follow another recent possible vaping-related death. More on that from reporter Mary Hansen.
A public health advocate and a state legislator want Illinois to ban flavored e-cigarettes and vaping in public. Kathy Dre with the American Lung Association Illinois says rates of tobacco use among teens are rising, and that's concerning.
Well, the candy and fruit flavors that are found in e-cigarettes are one of the primary reasons that kids use them.
A representative from the vaping industry group Smoke Free Alternatives Coalition of Illinois says e-cigarettes can help people quit smoking, a much deadlier habit, and the flavors are an important part of that. The debate has been getting more attention as the CDC reports more than 200 vaping-related illnesses nationwide. I'm Mary Hansen.
Remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Missouri wants large livestock operation regulation to be done at the state level. Some counties say that's their job. Now, a judge has put a new law that gives the state control on hold pending a lawsuit by 2 counties, an environmental group, and a handful of private citizens. St. Louis Public Radio's Jonathan Ahl reports it's a battle that has already played out in other Midwestern states.
Blake Hurst, president of the Missouri Farm Bureau, says the legislation rights a wrong and has agriculture following the same rules as every other industry in the state. He says counties are not equipped to make decisions about concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFOs, where hundreds, sometimes thousands of hogs or cattle are kept in small pens in large warehouse-like structures to maximize output. Hurst says the state needs to take the lead.
It takes a certain amount of expertise. These are scientific questions, and counties don't have that expertise, and so they adopt these. Basically what they do is adopt these poorly written regulations?
Hurst says that the 20 counties that have regulations on the books about CAFOs are inconsistent and unfair, and that's why the state stepped in to try to prohibit counties from their own rules and create a statewide system. That's rubbing local officials the wrong way. Randy Verkamp is a county commissioner in Phelps County. He says when it comes to a local issue, it should be local elected officials that make the decision.
In the balance, we think we know more about what's going on in our county, and we know what would be best for it, as opposed to folks from afar, and that would include most of the representatives and senators in the legislature. So mostly we prefer local control. We're big fans of local control.
Rural residents and small farmers also want to see those decisions made locally.
Where you going, one? You gonna let me come say hi?
Holly Bickmeyer is tending to the 20 cows on a cattle farm she manages in Maurice County. It's a small operation on 40 acres of pasture, nestled in 165 acres of mostly wooded land. Bickmeyer says the land she lives on is too sensitive and too important to leave up to state regulations devised by people who don't know her county.
Sinkholes open up all the time. I would be very concerned. I mean, you see the lake that's in my front yard here, and if somebody builds a hog operation at the end of my driveway, I would be concerned about that waste getting into the groundwater, and I walk out one day and I'll hope all my bass are dead.
Bickmeyer isn't involved in the lawsuit, but she hopes the plaintiffs are successful and keep regulations local and put in front of people she elected and she trusts.
I would expect my county commissioners to look very closely at the science and the studies that have been done and look to places like Iowa. Like, we don't want to be Iowa.
Iowa, along with Kansas, Illinois, and Wisconsin, are the Midwest states that have similar laws on the books, putting large livestock operations under state control instead of local governments. While Bickmeyer says that has led to bad outcomes in those states, others disagree. Daniel Anderson teaches agricultural engineering at Iowa State University. He says the rules have worked well in Iowa because it's taken the politics out of locating large livestock operations.
I think there is something nice about consistency and uniformity of regulations, and it creates a situation where it is what you know and not who you know when you get an operation that's permitted or not permitted.
Anderson says the Iowa system may not make everyone happy, but it's fair. Proponents of the bill in Missouri have said too many counties have made knee-jerk reactions to a small number of neighbors complaining about the smell and traffic that comes along with a large livestock operation and put unfair restrictions in place. But Holly Bickmeyer says it's the state that will be unfair under the new system. She says the Department of Natural Resources and Agriculture are now dominated by people with a certain point of view.
And they've stacked it with a lot of large, corporate agriculture people. So, of course, I don't feel like those folks are going to be watching out for local interests. They're watching out for the big guys.
A judge will have to determine the next step. A hearing on the future of the lawsuit and the law taking effect will be held on September 16th in Cole County. Reporting from Rolla, I'm Jonathan Aul, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Fred Ehrlich edited that report. Shula Newman is the executive editor of St. Louis Public Radio. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Wayne Pratt, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.
Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, a design-build company committed to remodeling the right way. Visit callmosby.com to get project inspiration for any room of your house.